Hey guys, I have several interviews that I need to get edited and shared with you as soon as possible. So I hadn't planned on making this particular video today, but I am so outraged that I dropped everything so that I can show you what's going on and talk to you about this tyranny against conversation and dialogue. A tyranny, an attack, an all-out assault against information. First of all, Facebook will not allow me or my webmaster to post my new video called Vax Truth. Guess what fascist Amazon just did to my friend, Kerri Rivera? They banned her book. They will not allow me to post that video, but we shouldn't be surprised because 6 days ago, all of these articles appeared on The Guardian, Wired, TechnologyReview.com, Vox.com. Facebook to ban anti-vax ads in new push against vaccine hoaxes. Facebook will crack down on anti-vaccine content. Facebook says it's going to make it harder to access anti-vaccine information. It is just an all-out assault, and it's an absolute outrage because for those of us who have suffered vaccine-damaged children, for those who suffer from autism or Asperger's and need help, they're now scrubbing your access to any information that might help you or your children. Which gets me to this absolutely absurd and hideous article from NBCnews.com, which absolutely has to be an article that's a result of me having had a conversation with Kerri Rivera just the other day titled, "And Then They Came for Vaccine Truth," which was, of course, immediately labeled not suitable for most advertisers by YouTube. Look at this article from NBC.com. Amazon removes books promoting autism cures and vaccine misinformation. Vaccine misinformation, huh? I would like to replay this soundbite from J.B. Handley on the doctors exposing the misinformation, exposing the real information about vaccines and the lack of safety and efficacy studies by the big pharma manufacturers.
In my opinion, and this is just me wanting to have an open debate about this, vaccines are really the one thing we have looked at as causing autism.
I agree with you. That is completely bogus. That is such a bogus statement. How many vaccines have they looked at in these studies? How many? What's the answer? It's 2. How many ingredients have they studied of 35? What's the answer? It's 1. You've looked at 2 of 36 shots and 1 of 35 vaccines, and you're going to stand on the stage and say that vaccines and autism are unrelated? It is the most bogus tobacco science. It's a smokescreen. Anybody who takes the time to read it would agree.
I want you to think about those numbers. Only 1 of 35 or 36 ingredients has even been studied as being safe or unsafe. Think about it. And meanwhile, NBC News says Amazon is removing from its online marketplace autism cure books that unscientifically claim children can be cured of autism with pseudoscientific methods such as ingesting and bathing in a potentially toxic form of bleach and taking medication meant to treat arsenic and lead poisoning. I won't even get into how disingenuous that first paragraph is, because what Kerri Rivera promotes as being something that could help your child with autism, it's not bleach. And it's never harmed a single child. I'll continue. Amazon confirmed Tuesday that the books Healing the Symptoms Known as Autism, that's Kerri's book, and Fight Autism and Win are no longer available, but declined to answer specific questions about why it had removed them or whether they were part of a larger cleanup effort, citing a policy of not commenting on individual accounts. No, they can destroy you, they can take your book down, they can do a modern-day book burning, but they can't actually discuss why they're doing it. The move by Amazon comes on the heels of a report in Wired published Monday that criticized the retail giant for offering medically dubious books and dangerous methods for reversing autism spectrum disorder. For years, news organizations have pointed out Amazon's practice of hosting books that promote vaccine and other health-related misinformation, but the pressure has intensified in recent weeks. We are under absolute assault. Those of us with children who have been vaccine damaged are under absolute assault. They want to push to make vaccines mandatory from east to west, from coast to coast, from north to south in this country. Are you listening? Are you paying attention, folks? You should be outraged, and you need to get on the phone. You need to call your representatives. You need to help them understand the truth about vaccines. It's not misinformation, to play that quote from J.P. Handley on the doctors. That's information.
Vaccines are really the one thing we have looked at as causing autism.
I agree with you. That is completely bogus. That is such a bogus statement. How many vaccines have they looked at in these studies? How many? What's the answer? It's 2. How many ingredients have they studied of 35? What's the answer? It's 1.
I'll continue with this horrible evil article from NBC News. Online platforms have been reacting to increased scrutiny from lawmakers and public health advocates over the health misinformation hosted on their websites. Last week, Facebook announced it would downrank vaccine misinformation shared on its platform and reject advertising that spread vaccine hoaxes. Pinterest has opted to block all vaccine-related search results, and YouTube disabled advertising on anti-vaccination videos last month. In February, Amazon pulled anti-vaccination documentaries from its Prime Video service. Oh, like Vaxxed? Folks, if you haven't seen Del Bigtree's documentary Vaxxed, go and watch it right now, especially if you're a parent-to-be or a pregnant woman or parents that already have children and are still vaccinating, or if you're thinking about getting Merck's Gardasil HPV vaccine. Go watch Vaxxed right now. Do yourself a favor and don't let yourself be misled by these charlatans that have sold their souls to Big Pharma. I'll continue with this evil article. Autism is a developmental disorder that appears in young children and for which there is no cure. I can't tell you how evil the person, who is the person that wrote this article? What an evil witch. Brandy Zadrozny. Well, way to go, Brandy. You're really doing your part in the Big Pharma cover-up and doing a great job helping to harm kids and continue to harm kids and continue to allow those who have been harmed from getting any sort of recovery. She says, children with autism spectrum disorder display a broad range of characteristics from difficulty interacting with peers or forming relationships to complete inability to function in school or work environments. As of Monday, Healing the Symptoms Known as Autism, Kerri's book, sold for $28 and had 631 customer reviews and an average rating of 3.5 stars. The book extolled the healing power of chlorine dioxide, a form of bleach that adherents call the miracle mineral solution. Guys, you got to go and learn about chlorine dioxide. Go and search YouTube while you still can for any of the presentations Kerri and others have done about this. It's not bleach. That's so disingenuous. The book's author, Kerri Rivera, who lives in Mexico, claims 191 children have been cured of autism with the treatment of the chemical that the Food and Drug Administration warned can cause severe nausea, vomiting, and life-threatening low blood pressure from dehydration. But guess what? It can't give you autism. It can't damage your children's brains or give you autoimmune deficiency disorders or other serious life-threatening ailments like the HPV vaccine.
When the doctor came out and asked me questions, they said, well, has he been sick? Has he had any changes or anything? I said, no, he hasn't been sick. I said, he's had a sore neck for the last couple days. Well, what about a couple weeks ago? Or, you know, I mean, they kind of were backtracking, and I said, well, he had the HPV vaccine on February 1st, and they went, oh.
Our children should not be dying because Merck has to pay back for Vioxx, right? In the industry, they call the HPV vaccine have to pay for Vioxx. This is not okay. It is not okay. I sold Vioxx for Merck. I saw what they did on the inside. I saw that they kept it on the market longer than it should have been. I know that they found irregularities in the studies before it was even approved by the FDA. That came out in the court case in Australia. And they sold it and they kept it on the market as long as possible. And they killed as many people as they could just for profit. And Colton's death is another one. For Gardasil, for a vaccine that showed that has never been proven to prevent one case of cervical cancer. The only reason that this is being pushed as the cause of cervical cancer is because there's a product to sell. And Merck has blood on their hands. They have blood on their hands, and people should be answering for Colton's death. And the 400 other children and teenagers and 20-year-olds that have died after receiving this vaccine, Colton is not the only one.
The other removed title, Fight Autism and Win, advises parents on chelation, an unproven treatment for autism that involves medicating a child with an antidote for mercury poisoning. Oh, what a novel idea. They shoot your children full of mercury, it damages their brains, and then you use chelation to try to remove the mercury from the brain and body, and somehow that's a bad thing, right? NBC News, NBC fake news. The cure springs from the debunked theory that autism is caused by mercury exposure in childhood vaccines. Let that sink in. Brandy the charlatan at NBC News, the propagandist hit artist, just wrote that line. Seriously, think about this. The cure springs from the debunked theory that autism is caused by mercury exposure in childhood vaccines. I would love for Brandy to cite the studies that prove that mercury is safe for your children and that mercury thimerosal in the vaccines is fine and dandy. Maybe we should all just go get direct mercury shots from our local doctor today. Maybe if it's so great, mercury is so wonderful for you, your children, and their brains, let's all just go get thimerosal, direct 100% thimerosal shots. Why don't we start doing that, Brandy? And this witch from NBC News concludes, chelation therapy can cause serious side effects, including potentially deadly kidney damage, according to the Mayo Clinic. At the time of its removal, Fight Autism and Win sold for $25 and had a 4.8 star rating and 54 customer reviews. And the witch there, Brandy, goes on to talk about the misinformation and the crackdown on misinformation on Facebook and on other social media platforms. Guys, I have never, ever in all my days, I've never seen such a war on discourse, such a war on dialogue, such a war on truth. Again, J.P. Handley had it right, and I would highly recommend that you all check out J.P. Handley's blog. It's jphandleyblog.com, jbhandleyblog.com. And he notes in his article, new Danish MMR study shows autism rate of 1 in 100 in Denmark, and notes the CDC should rush to Denmark to find out why, because in this country, in America now, it's almost 1 in 36 children being diagnosed with autism. And you know what he's found out as he's done the studies? It's because they're not giving the Hep B vaccine in Denmark. And you know what he's finding? The most compelling data in the study will never get covered. Why is the autism rate in this study only 1 in 100? Here in the US, we're at 1 in 36. Shouldn't CDC researchers rush to Denmark to figure out why their autism rate is much lower than ours? For every 1,000 Danish kids, only 10 have autism. But here in the US, we have 28 per thousand. That's 177% more autism. So what gives? My own personal theory as to why the Danes have a lower autism rate, they do not give the hepatitis B vaccine. No kids in their study received that vaccine, and the Chinese recently showed, as I shared with you in my last video, Hep B vaccine causes brain damage in mice.
Is it safe to say, am I going on a limb, if I say, based on Yao studies, hepatitis B can destroy or cause neurological disorders in the brains of mammals?
It's been established that it can biologically cause brain damage, and I would argue that that should be enough to pull the vaccine.
This is what NBC News and the big pharma manufacturers that have bought up all of these news media, mainstream media, news media outlets don't want you to know. Guys, I could go on and read this entire article from J.B. Handley, but you should go to his blog and read it for yourself to understand how the mainstream media news outlets in this country and big pharma are lying to you and misrepresenting the truth about their studies. The real studies are going on in places like Denmark and China, and the studies coming out of China are showing that at least the current version of the Hep B vaccine can cause brain damage. I want to conclude with this paragraph from Dr. Julie Buckley, author of Healing Our Autistic Children. It's from J.P. Handley's blog, and it really rounds out this video with exactly what I want you to know and exactly how I feel. She says, there is today a tremendous disconnect between obtainable knowledge and implementable treatment for autism. There is an ever-widening gap between what parents know and what physicians know. The parents have made themselves experts in complex biochemistry, immunology, and gastroenterology. They know what is happening on the cutting edge of autism treatment because their kids need them to know. This kind of parent overtakes their pediatrician's expertise very quickly. And guys, that's the truth. The doctors don't know. They're not given access to any real researcher studies because there is no real researcher studies being done in the United States. The big pharma companies police themselves, and the big pharma companies that produce these vaccines have immunity against any lawsuits if their vaccines do damage to your child. Do you know that? They have immunity. The U.S. government gave the vaccine makers immunity from lawsuits. And so the big vaccine pushers that have your doctors bought and paid for will never share the truth with them. All they can do is make sure that everyone believes that if you question the safety and efficacy of vaccines, studies for which in this country have never been done, you are a nutcase. Meanwhile, kids are getting autism at record rates, never before seen in the history of our nation. Well, that's all for now, guys. I want to thank you all so very much for tuning in. I'd ask you to share this information far and wide within your own sphere of influence on social media, but evidently that's becoming impossible to do. So share it however you see fit. I guess use email and share the link to this YouTube video. Thanks so much for your support, and a special shout out to my patrons. You truly are keeping me in this fight for truth, because it's clear that YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, everybody's coming after us for speaking the truth, and they're trying very hard to shut us up. So for real news 24/7, visit us at sgtreport.com, thephaser.com, and thelibertymill.com. God bless. Bye-bye.
When you use Google, do you get more than one answer? Of course you do.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's a bug. We have more bugs per second in the world. Because we should be able to give you the right answer just once.